My life is like a woman in the Cambodian folktale that I lost everyone. My husband, my mother, and my son. I no longer had any hope in me.
This is a story of Bodacha, a woman who lost her husband after he was accused as a colonel of the Khmer Republic, which Khmer Rouge targeted as enemies during the mass atrocities of the democratic Cambodia era. This is Krahaam Podcast, a documentary storytelling journey where Cambodian Gen Z return to the Khmer Rouge regime through lived stories, honoring resilience and passing memory forward. And this season, we retrace the Khmer Rouge common purpose, the so-called Great Leap Forward, to understand how it was designed, how it unfolded, and why it still matters today. In today's episode, Became Neang Bodacha, we are going to explore how the Khmer Rouge targeted former Khmer Republic soldiers and used manipulation to turn communities against their families. What happens when a regime convinces people to see others as enemies? This episode is reported by Nita. She will guide you through this whole story. This is a heavy topic. Tune in when you are ready.
Neang Bodacha is a figure from the life of Buddha, remembered for losing her entire family. She lost one child in childbirth, another to a flood, her husband to a snake bite, and later her parents when their house collapsed. Bodacha, a Khmer Rouge survivor, shares a similar life story. But her family's separation and loss were not the result of fate or accidental tragedy. Her loss of family was the result of the Khmer Rouge regime's systematic plan to eliminate former Khmer Republic soldiers and their families. Her husband disappeared, her mother died from illness, her son starved to death. Standing before the extraordinary chambers in the Court of Cambodia, also known as the ECCC in 2013, Bodacha, as a civil party, compared her life to the story of Neang Bodacha, retelling her loss in front of the court and the public.
My life is like a woman in the Cambodian folktale that I lost everyone. My husband, my mother, and my son. I no longer had any hope in me.
Bodacha's story shows how enemy was just not a label, it was the common purpose in action. Driven by the belief that threat had to be eliminated at the root, the Khmer Rouge systematically targeted former Khmer Republic officials and their families. The court later found that arrests, forced transfers, and killings were used to eliminate them as political enemies. Shortly after the fall of Phnom Penh, the ECCC found that the Khmer Rouge Northwest Zone Committee ordered the elimination of former Khmer Republic officials, including civilians, administrators, soldiers, and their families. Under the claim of re-education and preparing to welcome Prince Norodom Sihanouk, at least 250 former officials were deceived, transported to Tua Pochre in Posat province, and systematically killed. The court concluded that this policy of elimination began before 1975 and continued until at least early 1979, resulting in arrest and execution during the mass evacuations. During the Khmer Republic era, also known as the Lon Nol regime, Bodacha and her husband Sao Saran had one child. They lived near the Thai embassy where Saran worked and Bodacha was employed as a cook. On 17 April 1975, as the Khmer Rouge entered Phnom Penh and ordered the city evacuations, soldiers forced their way into Bodacha's house, demanding to know who owned it. When Saran said they were only guarding the home, the soldier didn't believe him and beat him severely. Bodacha begged them to stop, but they ignored her.
He was beaten with a rifle butt, and he was kicked, and they asked him to tell them the truth that he was the owner of the house. He maintained his response, and I begged them not to mistreat my husband. They did not listen to me. They kept kicking him, and it was painful for me to watch it.
That same night, around 8 p.m., other soldiers entered her house again and ordered Bodina's family to leave immediately. With no time to gather their belongings, they were forced to walk for days toward her hometown in Kodak village, Kanda province. Along the road, Bodina saw Khmer Republic soldiers tie up and march in a long line, depending her fear on her family fate. At the first stop, evacuees from Phnom Penh were ordered to register their names and families. After what she had witnessed, Bodina refused to let her husband register. When they let her reach her hometown, the Khmer Rouge registered them and labeled them as April 17 people, referring to those newly evacuated from Phnom Penh. About 12 kilometers from the first registration point, the Khmer Republic officials and soldiers were convinced by loudspeakers announcements promising to return their former workplace, only to be taken to a mass execution site. The court found that deceptive calls to report or register routinely led to arrest, disappearance, and execution. Som Jia, a Khmer Rouge soldier, confirmed this pardon in case 002/1 testimony. He testified about the invasion of Phnom Penh, civilian evacuations, and the treatment of Khmer Republic officials and soldiers.
They set up loudspeakers in order to propagandize, to lure former loyal soldiers to submit themselves and to surrender. So that was the trick that they were plotted to do, and they asked them to come in and reveal their former status. For example, if they were captains or soldiers of any rank. That's what they did at the time.
When Bodina and her family reached her hometown in Kodak, they could not stay. There was not enough food, so they were forced to move again. This time, the evacuation was followed by a rumor in her hometown that her husband Saran had been a colonel under the previous regime, held the rank of Sapram.
At first, in my hometown, they accused my husband of being a colonel. His name was on the list right from my hometown.
Because of the rumor, Bodina's family was closely watched and targeted. From this point on, her life only grew harder. Like many others, Bodina and her family was forced into collective labor, working under Angka. One day, her husband was assigned to plug the field. Then, he disappeared without a trace. She only learned from her son that he had seen his father taken away by a group of Khmer Rouge soldiers.
I heard it through a rumor that my husband was a colonel. Then they arrested him and sent him for a re-education based on this allegation. I know that my husband would probably never return.
Since then, she was labeled as a colonel wife. She endured physical and emotional abuse, concentrates, and was forced to work day and night without rest until she fell seriously ill.
They accused me of being a spouse of a colonel. They mistreated me. They made me work extremely hard day and night. I felt sick, and I felt very sick. So sick that I could not go anywhere to get even the food ration I was supposed to get.
When it was time to collect the family daily food, Bodacha was too sick to go herself and sent her 6-year-old son instead. He returned with only 1 spoonful of corn and 1 spoonful of beans. Bodacha was devastated, watching her child go hungry day after day. Constant starvation and the absence of medicine left her son gravely ill. He died crying for food. Not long after, her mother also fell seriously ill. Bodacha begged for permission to see her, but it was refused. She ran away in desperation, only to arrive too late. Her mother had already died. Even then, Bodacha was not allowed to go near the body and was kept from her mother, even in death. This was only the halfway of what Bodacha would endure. Bodacha was sent to jail after she refused a forced remarriage at the labor camp. Inside the prison, she witnessed brutal torture, mainly targeted former Lone Nor soldiers. She saw one man tied up, his face tightly wrapped in rubber, a soldier standing on his chest while shouting, "Are you a Lone Nor soldier?" Even he denied it. The beating continued.
They kept asking the same question, if he was a Lone Nor soldier, and he kept replying the same thing. Then they kept beating him up.
After 3 days in jail, Bodacha was sent to a hospital. A few weeks later, once she recovered, she wrote a letter asking to join farming unit. She survived by being constantly moved and reassigned from one unit to another. She worked in a unit that collected the cow dung for rice fields. One night, Angka ordered her unit to work on Samsan Mountain in Kampong Spu. Too exhausted to go on, Bodacha refused. For that refusal, 4 or 5 soldiers beat her legs violently, breaking them to stop from her running away. This punishment for her disobedience left her permanently disabled to this day.
Because I refused to go, that I was beaten, and actually attempted to break my leg, and the scar has remained with me today. They beat me up, and I became unconscious.
The widespread suffering endured by countless victims led to the establishment of the Khmer Rouge Tribunal to hold those most responsible accountable. The court found that Nuon Chea played a leading role in shaping and enforcing this policy through the security system, including S21 and execution sites such as Tu Po Chray, while Khieu Samphan supported the policy with knowledge and the widespread executions. The court convicted Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan of crimes against humanity and sentenced them to life imprisonment. Both Bodacha and Bodacha show a journey from pains to resilience. For Bodacha, healing comes from encounter with the Buddha compassions that help her regain clarity and freedom of mind. Bodacha reclaimed justice, recovery, and resilience inside the courtroom when the judgment convicted Khmer Rouge leaders. Bodacha's story is a painful reminder of what this policy means in real life. Her suffering reflects the systematic persecution carried out against those labeled enemy, especially the so-called April 17 people. By telling her story, we remember not only her loss, but the countless lives destroyed by the system beyond fear, suspicions, and elimination.
At the end of this story, it reminds us that actions driven by hatred and violence never bring justice or healing, but instead leave lasting scars on victims and divisions within society. However, the mistreatment didn't end there. Next, we will uncover another chapter of suffering and the mistreatment towards the Cham. This story is produced by That Molyka, script written by Pheak Sophea, researched by Phally Sreynich, audio edited by Khut Pisey, reporter by Nita, supervised by Hean Socheata and Nov Povleakhena. Krahaam Podcast is the product of a final assignment submitted for the broadcast journalism and podcast production at the Department of Media and Communications of the Royal University of Phnom Penh. Thanks to the ECCC Resource Center for extensive support through the research of the Judicial Archive. Until next time.